And to help us sort them out is my neighbor, Bruce Feldman. For my money, the best college writer in America today. And Bruce, how are things? How are you, man?
Good to be on with you guys. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, great to have you. All right, explain to us and to the audience the significance of this house thing, house versus NCAA. I understand, Bruce, that schools can now pay players directly. How is that different from the NIL we just went through last year?
Well, now you have in this house settlement that came out late Friday night, and it goes into effect July 1st, so that's right around the corner, that there's about $20.5 million revenue sharing cap, and it's going to cover every sport in a school's athletic department. Now, the bulk of it, if you have a major college football program, is going to be around $15 million. Probably a lot less will go to the college basketball team or the other revenue-producing sports, and then, it'll probably diminish way down from there. What's different now, I think, is right this year that we're in right now, especially with college football not too far around the corner, you're going to have teams that may spend $40 million on the roster. That is including into this salary cap from revenue share, but other deals that they've already worked out. And so last year, and Ohio State's athletic director put this out there, that they had spent about $20 million on the roster. I think you may get double that for some programs. And it's hard for me to believe, after talking to a lot of coaches over the last 72 hours, that they're going to walk back and go, okay, we may have spent $40 million this year. Next year, we're only going to spend 20. I just don't. That's not how college sports works. So it's really, right now, depending on who you talk to in athletics, I think you're getting a lot of different answers and a lot of different speculation about how this is actually going to work, because the coaches I've talked to aren't very clear on what their orders are going to be. They just know that a lot of their competitors, they feel, are going to be finding workarounds, and that's what gives them a lot of concern.
Okay, I'm a top-flight quarterback. I want to go to USC, Bruce. Do I get paid by both the university and NIL money, or do I get just one or the other? How does that work?
Well, I think this is a good point, because let's say Bryce Young a few years ago won the Heisman, Southern California kid who went out to Alabama. From what I was told, the bulk of the money he was getting was not coming from Alabama. Now, he may have said to them, hey, look, pay some of my teammates. I can get a lot of money from Dr. Pepper, or I think in Caleb Williams' case, he was getting a lot of money, especially from American Airlines, and they did certain kind of national deals that can do that. I think those things are still going to be in play in terms of this, but you're going to have some schools that are going to have collectives, which is I think what you're alluding to from before, and some other schools are being told they can't. I mean, that's the part why the answers I've been getting, especially in today and yesterday, have been all over the map in terms of how some of these schools have been told. I mean, one of the head coaches I talked to said, I would have loved it if me and the other 63 Power 4 head coaches, along with our athletic directors, were all on a Zoom call with this new head of, this essentially compliance person who's going to be policing about all these deals. Because supposedly, you basically have 5 days for people to turn in the paperwork for these deals. And this guy was like, that's not realistic. That's just not going to happen. And there's a lot of skepticism about how many schools are going to turn this in. Do we have to track down all these agents who are doing these other deals? And what happens if they don't produce it? Because this was interesting to hear, but most of the head coaches I've talked to said they don't know all the deals that their players have, because a lot of them, happen outside of their universities.
Right, yeah, but in the collective, we're talking to Bruce Feldman, who, of course, you can watch on TV working for Fox Sports, writes for The Athletic, and Bruce knows more about college football than anybody I know. The other story that broke over the weekend, Bruce, was this thing with EA Sports that we're trying to make sense out of, where they say they're going to pay schools based on how much each team is used when people play video games. Now, I'm not a gamer, but this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. They had 1.7 billion streams of EA college football 26. Is that a big deal, a little deal, or does it make sense to you? What's going on with that?
I think in the grand scheme of this is a littler deal. That's a good way for their engagement. And I don't want to diminish that audience because, to be honest, John, I live with one now.
Yeah, Ben,
my 11-year-old is out of control. Not out of control, but he spends quite a bit of time on it. And the little rabbit holes of the way he finds out about the game, I think that is a huge audience, especially with teenagers and people probably under 25 all the way down to people his age. And so I think that's something that they're trying to ramp up, and that there's an audience there. I just don't think in relative to the rest of the money we're talking about, I don't think it's as big a deal, but I think it's a good marketing push that the video game is doing to ramp up attention for it.
Okay, so another thing I wanted to ask you about is that Mason and I are on different sides of this USC Notre Dame thing.
Yeah.
I want USC and Notre Dame to keep playing.
And I want to be in the college football playoff.
Right, but to be honest, Bruce, Mace is supporting what I think to be the Lincoln Riley position here, which is, hey, I'm going to get judged on whether or not I make the playoff, and I'm in a tough conference now that we moved to the Big Ten. Why do I want to play Notre Dame when they can hand me another loss? I get that, but I still want to protect the rivalry. I know this is a story you've covered closely. How do you think it's going to end up?
Oh, I feel like USC has been trying, some of the powers that be are trying to lean into this to make it more palatable. And I'm sorry that Mason feels that way. I mean, you're USC.
Yes.
You've always taken pride in your traditions and being different and not taking the easy way out. And I think it makes a lot of USC people, like real longtime USC people, disgusted that they would back out of a Notre Dame rivalry. I mean, you can say, yes, the Big Ten is a much tougher league. The Big Ten is also a bloated conference. There's almost 20 teams in there. So what that means is, yeah, there are some top-level teams, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, typically Michigan sometimes. But the truth is they're not playing them every year.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the ranked teams USC played last year who finished in the top 25, they played less ranked teams when they were a Big Ten team than they did the previous two seasons and the last two seasons of the Pac-12. Right?
Yeah, but here's the thing, Bruce. So, by the way, all the old heads from USC they've been coming at me for weeks now.
As they should be.
But I will say, that Oregon schedule that leads off with Montana State and doesn't really have a quality opponent looks pretty good. I'm looking at that Georgia schedule. Georgia's got their non-conference games are Marshall, Austin Peay, and Charlotte. I mean, seriously, they are scheduling to make the
Georgia
playoff.
Tech in there, though.
They do have Georgia Tech at the end of the year. You're right. They have Georgia Tech. But they're playing for the playoff. And I don't understand why you want, when you're playing in a tough conference, why do you want to add a game that you can potentially lose?
Because you're USC. You think
you're USC.
I mean, look,
we haven't been in the playoff for a long time. Well, of course, we are USC, unfortunately, in this particular scenario.
But I look, last year Georgia opened with Clemson. I mean, that was they blew Clemson out. My point to you would be this. If you're so worried about that you can't beat the middle of the conference to get enough to 9 wins or to 10 wins, if you can't beat the Nebraskas and the Wisconsins and the certainly like the Marylands and Rutgers and the rest of it, then you shouldn't be worried about being a playoff team. You're USC.
No,
if you're going to be really good,
Bruce,
you don't worry about it.
If you lose 2 or less, you're in. If you're from a big conference and you lose 2 or less, you're in. Is that true? So far, no two-loss team has missed.
Most likely.
So why do you want to add a game that you could potentially lose? You're not going to get any credit for playing Notre Dame because quality of schedule doesn't seem to matter anymore. So why play an extra tough game?
Well, you might, because that was the only thing that was making the case for Alabama to be anywhere near that. And they had 3 losses. And the teams they lost to, one of them was Vandy. That was not a great team.
Sure.
One of them was Oklahoma, which was terrible last year. My point is, if you're going to be good enough, you're going to be good enough. And if you're not, however you want to gerrymander your schedule, you're probably going to stumble somewhere along the way. And I just think if you're USC, you pride yourself on being like, this does not feel like something USC would have done back in the Pete Carroll days or back in the John McKay days or the John Robinson days.
Okay, so let me ask you. Obviously, Pete's not here. Neither is John Robinson. It's Lincoln Riley at the moment, and we don't necessarily have a sniff of the playoff, at least so far. Here's what I want to know, because I'm hearing really good things out of USC. Number 1 recruiting class for 2026. Apparently, they figured out the NIL. They've got Chad Bowden now as the general manager. He was the general manager for the Irish last year and seems to know what he's doing. What is going on over there? Are they recapturing that recruiting vibe that they had so many years with Pete?
Well, I think they have a lot of momentum right now, and it seems like they have been very aggressive on what they can spend and what they're going after recruits for. And I think once you get the momentum, now the key part is to keep it. And to keep the players you have committed. They had a couple of runs in the past, not that long ago, where they had a lot of kids, top players committed, and then either the classes started to fall apart or it started to dwindle. And I think that's the challenge. If the product on the field, if they go 7-5, I think that's one of the challenges you have, is sustaining that.
Keeping the class together. Yeah.
Keeping the class together. And honestly, you have to develop players.
Yep.
I think that's one of the bigger concerns is we know Lincoln's been terrific when it comes to developing quarterbacks, and they've been really good at developing wide receivers. But beyond that, it's like this has not looked like USC used to when it comes to the defensive line, the offensive line. And that's the part where you gotta develop players. I'm not saying they can't do it, but right now you mentioned it. It's been a long time since they've been really, really good. Sam Darnold was terrific, and they've had a bunch of good receivers. But I think USC has to find a way, not just to get those players, but to develop them.
Right.
And,
yeah. Put them to use.
And so we'll see.
Bruce, last thing for you it sounds like they're sticking with Jaden Maeva at quarterback, right? I mean, all these quarterbacks are moving, and USC went and got Caleb out of Oklahoma a few years ago. I thought they would probably do it again, but is that the plan as far as you understand it, that the guy that finished last year?
I know they're excited about a young quarterback they have local, Son Longstreet, who is an Elite 11 kid and talented. My guess is they may have a package for him, but I think Maava's right now, he's been there 2 years. He's had plenty of time in the system. And again, they have a couple of big time receivers. We'll see how much better they can be on the offensive line. I think they'll be a little better on defense, but it's not like this is a team that's dripping with top 50 kind of NFL draft picks.
Right.
So again, I think Lincoln's shown he's really good with scheming up plays and taking advantage of what he can take advantage of. But everything I've heard is that it'll probably be Maava. And I don't think there's a ton of guys out there, grad transfer quarterbacks they could take post-spring who would jump in and compete for a starting job. It's like whoever they got is whoever they got.
All right. Hey, Bruce, it's great to get you. As we get to college football season, I definitely want to get you back on. And John has to stop over later because he needs a cup of sugar.
But Bruce and I don't make those decisions.
No.
Yeah, Chrissy and Lisa are in charge. We both married women that are in charge of our lives.
There you go.
That stuff gets covered.
Bruce, thanks a lot for coming on, man.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
See you, man.
Bruce Feldman, and I'm looking at the YouTube across the bottom, it says Bruce Feldman, John Ireland's neighbor.
Yeah, there you go.
It's perfect. All right.